Today is a glorious, glorious day because not only is it the first day of Black History Month, it is also the first day of Cupid Month. And what is Cupid Month, might you ask? Cupid is my lovely dog. Cupid is the reason why I'm Venus. Cupid is the reason why anyone who's watching this is one of my lovely Venusians. So in honor of Cupid, I am stepping outside of my comfort zone and I'm doing something that I don't do. I am going to read romance novels. And I'm not only going to read one or two. I am going to read romance novels until I get a 5-star or I literally lose my mind. I am not a romance hater by any means. Maybe some of my ratings would disagree with that. Just some. But I also don't think that I've given it a fair shot, which is what we are doing this month. I have a wide array of romance novels to try this month. I'm going to do contemporary romance, romantasy. I'll probably also throw in a YA romance. Like, I'm throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. Like, I'm giving this a real shot. The first book that I picked is A Love Song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. And by the first book that I picked, I really mean the first book that was available to me through my library system. So the first book that the library picked for me was A Love Song by Ricki Wilde. No, it's A Love Song by, I keep saying A Love Song by Ricki Wilde. I'm in the first chapter. I'm barely into it, but I'm liking it. I was kind of scared to have this one first because I'm like, this could be the first star. Like, imagine if I do this whole video like reading romance until I get a 5-star and then I get a 5-star in the first book. Let's make a deal. If I finish A Love Song for Ricki Wilde and it is a 5-star as my first book, then instead of being a 5-star vlog, I'll just turn this into a exploring Tia Williams vlog. Like, her whole, maybe not her whole back catalog, but like reading multiple of her books. So it'll just be about her. Because if she's the one that can get me to a 5-star, then she deserves all her flowers. Like, let's just go through the whole back catalog. I feel like I'm really upbeat in this. The sun is shining. My dog is perfect. I'm black. Like, what more could you want? This story follows quirky, type B, down-to-earth, born into wealth but prefers to shop secondhand, Ricki Wilde. Ricki and her trio of bitchy sisters are heirs to an empire of funeral homes and are expected to take their part of the family business. But Ricki, always the black sheep, the family disappointment, has other plans. The book follows Ricki as she strives for independence, makes her own path, and finds an unlikely love that defies time and space. I finished A Love Song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. I feel like I need to hold off on reading these books until I'm finished with the video. I haven't decided within myself yet if I want to rate romance books the exact same way that I rate other books, or if I want to rate them like for a romance book, this was this good for me. That's kind of what I do with YA books because I just can't rate them on the same scale as other books that I'm reading, and I have a feeling that maybe I should do that with romance books as well, but I want to give a few more books a shot to see if I believe in that. Let's start with the things that I like. I loved how this book was genre bending. I loved how it blended in that historical fiction, specifically about the Harlem Renaissance, and I loved the element of kind of like a supernatural thing added onto the romance. Something that I didn't like about this book is that it was so entirely predictable. You could tell 100 pages in what was going to happen, and then that's exactly what happened. I haven't read enough romances to say which tropes I like and dislike definitively, but one thing that I did not enjoy about this book was the kind of instant love connection. I maybe could have given it a pass based off of the plot of the book, because I was kind of annoyed by it, but I was like, it makes sense based off of the book. Like, they're fated lovers. But then it went back around to annoying me again because there was this portion where, mind you, they love each other right away. They really do. Like, they are fighting it, but then they spend one day together and like then it's like that, you know what I'm saying? And once again, they're fated lovers, so that's fine. But what got me was when they sat down and had a conversation and they were like, no, this has nothing to do with like fate bringing us together. I just actually truly love you. And I'm like, well, how? I genuinely really was enjoying this book up until around the 65% mark, and I think that's when kind of like the reveal happens that was not really a reveal because we knew, like, it was already all laid out. But once that reveal happened, I just started getting really cynical. And I think that's part of the reason why romance is hard for me to read sometimes. I just turn into a Debbie Downer, and I swear, like, that is not my essence. These books really bring it out of me, and it's a romance book, so like, lighten up, have a good time. Overall, A Love Song for Ricki Wilde was okay. I enjoyed some of my time reading it. I started to get really annoyed towards the end. I feel like if it was just a standard contemporary romance set in modern time and that's it, like with no extra layers, if it follows an obvious storyline, I'm like, okay, that's to be expected. But you added in all these additional layers. You added the magical realism, you added the historical fiction, still to have the plot be so predictable. Like, you added in these interesting aspects and then it wasn't worth anything in the end. Like, it wasn't worth the wait to see where that was gonna go. So attempt at finding a 5-star romance #1 did not work. It is March 2nd and I'm ready to talk about the 6 romance books that I read in February. This book served as my contemporary book with a magical twist, but ultimately mostly grounded in reality attempt. I really enjoyed how it played with magic, traveling through time, and of course how that intermixed with the Harlem Renaissance. In my search for romance books that work for me, I will note that this was something that I did enjoy, those aspects of the story. And overall, I think just in general that those are things that I like, because I really like Daisy Jones and the Six. I also have Opal and Neve, and I think it's called The Johnson Five, and other like musical historical fiction books on my TBR. So I think that that's something that I can lean into, and while I'm searching for like my kind of romances, that's something that I can keep an eye out for. However, there were definitely storytelling and narrative things within this book that I did not like at all, really. I do think that it was a good book, but I don't think that it was fully for me. I want to say that I wanted the couple together at the end of the story. I liked one of the characters over the other for sure. On principle of something that happened within the plot, I low-key, like, I am preying on their downfall. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. Javi and Mari met in college. Javi was a lone wolf, not the brooding kind, just a homebody. Mari, on the other hand, was a social butterfly, and every guy on campus wanted to date her. Javi was no exception, but he knew that they'd never be the right fit. She's popular, and him a closed book. So they settled on a strictly platonic, but sometimes flirty friendship. Over the span of a decade, their friendship has had its ups and downs. Soon after a reconciliation, Mari reveals to Javi that she is engaged to be married, and wants Javi to be her man of honor. This is shocking to him for a few reasons. 1, he's absolutely in love with her, and 2, they had developed a pact in which they both had to give each other's potential partners the green light before they'd get serious. And Javi had never heard of this guy. This book served as my goofy rom-com attempt. There are plot lines so stupid that I could only refer to it as silly, and I decided to embrace the silliness. Unfortunately, for me to really buy into it being a rom-com, I would have to find it funny, and I just did not actually find it funny. Overall, I just could not find any enjoyment past the first part of the book. I did like the setup because one of the characters I did really enjoy, but the other character I did not. Overall, I didn't really like the ending, and I didn't quite care if the main characters ended up together or not. This story follows our main character Jaden, who is a prince of a made-up African island. He is known for not being the utmost royal and noble. He always feels not princely enough. In response to something unprincely that he has done, he is sent to the US to rebuild his reputation before he is allowed to return home. Throughout this journey, he finds himself, a connection to his family, and perhaps a boyfriend while he's there. This book served as my YA attempt. It also happened to be the only queer book within this reading vlog, which is crazy, and not on purpose at all, I promise. All of the books that I read were courtesy of the library, so I was, at the will of whatever the library decided to release to me. On top of that, there were some books that I sampled that just didn't make it. I wasn't even interested enough within the first 25% to continue on. So that's something to note. Everything that's on this list, it's already, you know, like the uphill battle, it is already won because 1, I didn't DNF it, and 2, I got about a quarter of the way through and was intrigued to continue. So even if I had something negative to say, it like caught my attention. You know what I'm saying? Like there were DNFs. I was really excited about this book for a few reasons. 1, I've been reading a lot of YA books. I feel like YA has just been kind of scratching something in my brain, like an escapism sector of my brain. And the second reason is because I generally like the Red, White, and Royal Blue book and movie, but I really love this TV show called Young Royals. Aside from both of those pieces of media having the trope of like a royal with a non-royal, I didn't know exactly what made me love those stories. I learned what made me love those stories by reading this book, but I learned because this book did not have that. I think my expectations going in was a certain style or personality or trope of how the prince would be that this prince was not. And I'm not saying that's like a fault of this character. It was just me realizing like, oh, that's what I liked about those stories. And this one didn't necessarily do that, which is, you know, there was no obligation for them to hit that mark for me. I thought that this story had really great bones, but not great execution. At the end of the story, it kind of just came off as the author had an end goal in mind, but didn't really care if the middle of the story justified how we got to the end. It definitely had its cute moments, but in the end, I wasn't necessarily rooting for the couple, but I also did not not want them together. They were just fine. 2 years after their divorce and shrouded by loss, Josiah and Yasmin juggle co-owning their restaurant, co-parenting their 2 kids, and possibly finding their way back to each other. I tried out a trope that I don't think I've ever read with this book, and it's second chance romance. I will say when starting this book, we all knew that the chips were stacked against its favor. Because if I already struggle as a romance hater and have trouble in the end of the book wanting and rooting for the main couple, imagine having to convince me that 2 people should get back together. I had high hopes that if anyone could do that, it would be Kennedy Ryan because I've heard such great things about her writing. While I did like her writing style, ultimately I did not like one of the characters. I did not want them to be together in the end. I was not rooting for them. In a way, I do see a path forward in how they could, in my mind, be ready to get back together, but I don't feel like the work was actually done within the story to justify that. I was not convinced that they had properly worked through their original issues on top of the fact that they have kids. So in my mind, I'm like, how are you guys gonna get back together knowing damn well you have kids and you haven't actually worked anything out, so you're dragging the kids into this? And I know it's fiction, but like, I am really excited to read more Kennedy Ryan. Like I said, I did enjoy her writing style, but this story truthfully was just never gonna work for me. I didn't know too much about it going in, but like if I had heard from other people more about what this book was going to be about, I think I would have known that it wasn't going to work for me. Even then, from the start, like when I was like 25% of the way through, I had pretty much got the groundwork of knowing what it was about, and I still thought I was like, no, she's going to pull it off. She's going to pull it off, and for me, no, did not pull it off. A novella about 2 rival video game development companies who are attempting to work together because it's the only way either company will be considered for a highly sought-after job. In an attempt to test the bounds of their cooperation, both companies agree to go on a joint ski retreat, and from there, things start to heat up. I thought that this one was going to serve as like my steamy contemporary book, but honestly it was not much more steamy than other things that I had read. It was really short, but within the time that I had with the book, it was enjoyable, but it also didn't do anything that like absolutely amazed me. I did root for the couple and felt like they were paired well and I wanted them together. There was a conflict within the book that I thought was kind of silly, but in a good way, like I had fun with it, and ultimately I don't think that I'm like 100% sold on Ali Hazlewood, but I would be interested in like, if the synopsis captures me, I would check her out, but I wouldn't go out of my way to read more of her if like I was kind of meh about the synopsis. This story follows January, a romance writer whose life circumstances have left her plumb out of good vibes, romance, or whatever it is that one needs to write a love story. After learning world-shattering news about her family, January moves into an inherited beach house for the summer to put back together the pieces of her life and hopefully finish her manuscript. Beach reads served as my standard contemporary attempt, and it definitely lived up to it. These characters felt like real people, and I've learned throughout this process that that is definitely something that I'm looking for. I loved the more serious subject matter that was interwoven throughout the book, and I felt like it was all handled really well. There's even a section where I cried for one of the characters, and for me that's usually like a good indicator of, you know, how I'm feeling about a book. Crying is good. By the end, I definitely wanted these characters together, and I also like them individually as separate people. I'm very excited to read more Emily Henry in the future. You may have noticed that I didn't have any dark romance, no romantasy, no cozy fantasy romance. There were so many things that I was missing. And as I've mentioned several times, that was literally just because I was at mercy of my library. So I kind of want to do this again. The only problem with that is that with all of these books, as I mentioned, there were some that I DNF'd. So everything that I did read to completion were things that I genuinely thought that I could like. I feel even more iffy about like dark romance and romantasy. I don't know about cozy fantasy stuff. Maybe I might like that. I don't know. But I feel like those ones would be definitely more ill-spirited kind of read. I don't want to say like hate reads, but I think I would have to force myself to not DNF. So I think that video would be more just like trying to finish it without DNFing and seeing if I like it, like giving it the full chance. But I think if I left it to my own devices, as soon as there was something like that like cringed me out, I think I would want to DNF. Here are some books that my friend let me borrow, and some of them she actually thinks that I would like, and some of them it's like do it for the plot. So, and not the plot of the book, the plot of me trying to read like a dark romance or something like that, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I should just to say that I have tried. You know what I'm saying? Like that I have done a dark romance, I have tried romantasy. But if you thought that this video was negative, I fear that one will be so much more negative.